The red dust blew across the dead riverbed like tiny knives cutting through the air. Hyunwoo pulled his mask tighter against his face and squinted at the horizon. Nothing but empty land stretched before him, cracked and broken like old pottery. He remembered when this place had water. He was only a boy then, but he remembered the sound of it flowing past their home. Now there was only silence and wind. His sister Gia walked beside him, her boots crunching on the dry ground. She carried a bag of tools over her shoulder, and her eyes scanned the abandoned buildings ahead. They were looking for parts again. Always looking for parts. The atmospheric processor at their settlement was breaking down, and without it they would have no water at all. The old housing district is just ahead, Gia said through her mask. Her voice sounded tired. Everything about her seemed tired these days. Maybe we can find some condenser coils. Hyunwoo nodded. They had been to this place 3 times before, but each time they found something useful. The people who lived here had left 7 years ago, when the drought became too severe. They took what they could carry and left everything else behind. Now Hyunwoo and Gia picked through the remains like scavengers. The drought had been going on for 14 years. 14 years without rain. 14 years of watching the water levels drop lower and lower. 14 years of rationing and hoping and praying to whatever gods might listen. But no gods answered. The sky remained empty and blue and cruel. Their father had died 3 years ago trying to fix the main condenser at the atmospheric processor. A pressure valve exploded and he was gone in seconds. Hyunwoo still had nightmares about the day they told him. After that, he and Gia had taken over his work. Someone had to keep the machines running. Someone had to try. They reached the first building and went inside. The door hung loose on its hinges and sand had piled up in the corners. Furniture sat covered in dust. A child's toy lay on the floor, a small stuffed animal that had once been blue but was now gray with dirt. Gia looked at it for a moment, then turned away. "Check the back rooms," she said. "I'll take the kitchen." They worked in silence, pulling apart old appliances and looking for anything that might help. Hyunwoo found some copper wire and a small motor that might still work. Not much, but better than nothing. He put them in his bag and moved to the next room. That was when he saw it through the broken window. Something metal gleaming in the distance. It was partially buried in the sand between 2 collapsed buildings. At first he thought it might be an old water tank, but the shape was wrong. Too smooth. Too clean. "Gia," he called out. "Come look at this." His sister appeared beside him and followed his gaze. Her eyes went wide behind her mask. "Is that what I think it is?" Only one way to find out. They ran toward it, their bags bouncing against their backs. As they got closer, Hyunwoo realized what it was. An escape pod, a real spacefaring escape pod, and it looked recent, not like the old abandoned equipment they usually found. This had crashed here recently, very recently. The pod was half buried in red sand, its hull scorched black from atmospheric entry. One side was crumpled from impact, but the other looked intact. Gia ran her hand along the surface, brushing away dust. "There's writing here," she said. "I can't read it. Not our language." Hyunwoo moved around to the front and found the access panel. His hands shook as he cleared away the sand. If someone was inside, they might be hurt. They might need help. But what help could he and Gia offer? They barely had enough water for themselves. The panel beeped when he touched it. Still had power. He pressed the emergency release, and with a hiss of air the door opened. Inside, strapped to the crash seat, was a person. But not a Velth like them. This person had different skin, more pink than blue-gray. Only 5 fingers on each hand instead of 4. Hair on top of the head, dark and matted with dried blood. The clothing was strange too, made from materials Hyunwoo had never seen. "It's a human," Gia whispered. "I've seen pictures. In the trade station records. This is a human." The human male was unconscious. His face was pale and covered in sweat. His lips were cracked and bleeding. Dehydrated. Badly dehydrated. Hyunwoo checked for a pulse and found one, weak but steady. "We need to get him back to the settlement," Gia said immediately. "He needs water." "Medical care?" Hyunwoo stared at her. "Sure, we don't have water to spare. You know what the council will say. They'll be angry. I don't care what they say." Gia's voice was firm. She started unbuckling the straps that held the human in place. "Father taught us that travelers in need deserve help. Always. No matter what. Are you going to help me or not?" Hyunwoo looked at the unconscious human. He thought about their dwindling water supply. He thought about the angry faces of the council members. He thought about his father. who had died trying to help their people. What would his father do? He sighed and moved to help his sister. Let's get him out of here. Together they lifted the human from the pod. He was heavier than expected, all solid muscle and dense bone. They found a small bag in the pod with some equipment and a datapad covered in strange symbols. Jia grabbed it while Hyunwoo supported the human's weight. The journey back took twice as long. The human remained unconscious, his head lolling against Hyunwoo's shoulder. Several times they had to stop and rest. The sun beat down on them without mercy. By the time they reached the settlement gates, Hyunwoo's arms ached and his back screamed in pain. The guards at the gate stared at them with wide eyes. What is that? One of them asked. A human, Jia said. We found him in a crashed escape pod. He needs Dr. Yoonbi immediately. Word spread fast in their small settlement. By the time they reached the medical center, a crowd had gathered. People whispered and pointed. Some looked curious. Others looked angry. Hyunwoo saw Elder Jaemin standing at the edge of the crowd, his old face twisted in disapproval. Dr. Yoonbi met them at the door. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and steady hands. She took one look at the human and gestured them inside. Put him on the bed, quickly. They laid the human down and Dr. Yoonbi went to work. She checked his vital signs, examined his wounds, and hooked him up to monitoring equipment. Her face grew more concerned with each passing moment. Severe dehydration, she said. Multiple contusions. Possible concussion. I need to give him fluids, but... She looked at Jia and Hyunwoo. You know what that means. I'll have to use our IV supplies. We don't have much left. Do it, Jia said without hesitation. The council won't like this. I know. Do it anyway. Dr. Yoonbi nodded and began setting up the IV. Hyunwoo watched as precious water, mixed with nutrients and minerals, dripped into the human's veins. Water they could barely spare. Water their people needed. The door burst open. Elder Jaemin strode in, his face red with anger. Behind him stood 3 other council members. What is the meaning of this? He demanded. Why are you wasting our resources on a stranger? An alien stranger? Jia stepped forward. The ancient code says we must help travelers in need. You taught us that yourself, Elder. That code was written when we had water to spare. Look around you, child. We are dying. Our people are leaving. We cannot afford charity. We cannot afford to lose our humanity either, Jia shot back. If we abandon those in need, what are we? What's the point of surviving if we become monsters? The room fell silent. Elder Jaemin's jaw worked, but no words came out. Finally, he pointed at the unconscious human. He lives or dies on your conscience. But mark my words. If our people suffer because of this decision, it will be remembered. He turned and left, the other council members following. Dr. Yoonbi returned to her work, and Hyunwoo let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Jia pulled up a chair and sat beside the bed. Will he live? She asked softly. Dr. Yoonbi checked the monitors. I don't know. I've never treated a human before, but I'll do everything I can. Outside, the wind howled across the dry land. The sky remained empty and blue, and in the medical center, a human stranger fought for his life while the Velth people wondered what his presence might mean for their dying world. 3 days passed before the human opened his eyes. Hyunwoo was sitting beside the bed when it happened, reading through the data pad they had found in the escape pod. The translator program had finally cracked the human's language, though many words still made no sense. The human's eyes fluttered open, and he stared at the ceiling with confusion. Then his gaze moved to Hyunwoo. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The human's hand moved slowly to his chest, checking for injuries. He winced when he touched his ribs. Where? The human's voice came out rough and dry. He coughed and tried again. Where am I? Hyunwoo held up the translator device. Can you understand me through this? The human nodded slowly. Yes, I can understand you. Where am I? What happened? You crashed. My sister and I found you in your escape pod 3 days ago. You're in our settlement's medical center, on Velthara Prime. The human tried to sit up but fell back with a groan. Dr. Yoonbi appeared from the other room and gently pushed him back down. Don't move too quickly. You've been very sick, dehydrated, you need rest. You saved me, the human said, looking between them. His eyes were dark brown, almost black. Hyunwoo had never seen eyes that color before. Thank you. My name is Taesung. I'm a terraforming specialist. My ship malfunctioned in orbit and I had to eject. I'm Hyunwoo. This is Dr. Yoonbi. My sister Jia will want to know you're awake. Tae-sung looked around the room, his eyes taking in everything. The old equipment, the cracked walls, the way Dr. Yunbi carefully measured out water for him to drink. You don't have much, do you? Resources, I mean? No, Dr. Yunbi said simply. We don't. Then why did you save me? Why waste your water on a stranger? Hyunwoo met his gaze. Because it was the right thing to do. Something passed across Tae-sung's face. Shame, maybe, or sadness. He looked down at his hands. I'm sorry. I've caused you trouble. Rest now, Dr. Yunbi said. We can talk more later. But Tae-sung shook his head. No, I need to understand. What's happening here? Why is everyone so worried about water? So Hyunwoo told him. He explained about the drought that had lasted 14 years. About the atmospheric processor that was failing. About the people who had already left and the ones who stayed behind because they had nowhere else to go. About his father who died trying to keep the machines running. About the empty sky that never brought rain. Tae-sung listened to everything, his face growing more troubled with each word. When Hyunwoo finished, the human was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. I can help. I'm a terraforming specialist. I work with atmospheres and water cycles. I can look at your processor. You need to recover first, Dr. Yunbi said firmly. I'm fine. Are fine enough? Tae-sung pushed himself up, moving slowly but with determination. You saved my life. Used your precious water on me. The least I can do is try to help. Word spread quickly that the human was awake. Within an hour, Jia arrived with several council members. Elder Jamin was there too, his face still showing disapproval. They crowded into the medical center, all wanting to see the stranger who had caused so much controversy. Jia smiled when she saw Tae-sung sitting up. You're awake. How do you feel? Better. Thanks to all of you. Tae-sung bowed his head and Hyunwoo recognized it as a sign of respect in human culture. I understand I've caused problems. I want to help if I can. Elder Jamin snorted. Help? What can you do? You're not even from our world. I'm a terraforming specialist. I've worked on 12 different planets, helping establish atmospheric processors and water reclamation systems. If you let me see your equipment, maybe I can find a way to improve it. The council members looked at each other. One of them, a stern woman named Hae-won who managed their settlement's operations, stepped forward. You really think you can help? Our best engineers have tried everything. I don't know until I look. But I have to try. You saved my life. I owe you that much. Elder Jamin shook his head. This is foolish. He knows nothing about our systems. What harm can it do to let him look? Jia argued. We're already dying slowly. If there's even a chance he can help, we should take it. The debate went on for another hour. Finally, Hae-won made the decision. He can look at the processor. But if he damages anything, it stops immediately. 2 days later, when Dr. Yunbi finally cleared him to leave the medical center, Tae-sung went with Hyunwoo and Jia to see the atmospheric processor. It sat on the edge of the settlement, a massive collection of pipes and tanks and machinery that groaned and wheezed like a dying animal. Tae-sung walked around it slowly, examining every part. He took notes on his datapad and asked questions constantly. How long had it been running? What maintenance had been done? What were the typical output levels? Hyunwoo and Jia answered everything they could. After 2 hours of inspection, Tae-sung sat down on a metal crate and shook his head. I can't believe this thing still works at all. It's incredibly outdated. The design is at least 80 years old by my standards. It's all we have, Hyunwoo said defensively. I know. I'm not criticizing. I'm actually amazed you've kept it running this long. It shows real skill. Tae-sung pulled up some diagrams on his datapad. But the basic design is flawed. You're fighting against the atmosphere instead of working with it. What do you mean? Jia leaned in to look at the diagrams. Your processor tries to force moisture out of the lower atmosphere using pressure and temperature differentials. But there's not enough moisture down here anymore. You need to go higher. Pull from the upper atmosphere where water vapor still exists. And you need multiple smaller units instead of one big one. Create a network. That would require completely rebuilding everything, Hyunwoo said. We don't have the resources. Not completely rebuilding, modifying. We can use parts from this existing system and add new components. There's a technique called ion seeding that can help pull moisture down from the upper levels. I've used it before on dry worlds. Jia's eyes lit up with hope. And you think this could work here? I think it has a chance. A real chance. But I'll need help. And we'll need to scavenge a lot of parts. It won't be easy. That evening, a woman named Young Mi came to visit Tae-sung. She was a farmer, one of the few still trying to grow food in the dusty soil. She carried a small cup of water, and she set it down in front of him with shaking hands. "This is my family's ration for tomorrow," she said quietly. "But I want you to have it. Thank you for trying to help us." Tae-sung stared at the cup. His eyes became wet and he blinked rapidly. "I can't take this. This is your water. Your family needs it. Please, take it. You're working hard for us. You need strength." Young Mi's small son, Dae-hyun, peeked out from behind her legs. He looked at Tae-sung with wide, curious eyes. Tae-sung looked at the child, then at the mother, then at the cup of water. He picked it up with both hands as if it were the most precious thing in the world. "Thank you. I promise I'll do everything I can. I won't let you down." Young Mi bowed and left with her son. Tae-sung sat there holding the cup for a long time before he drank. When he finally did, Hyunwoo saw tears running down the human's face. Later that night, Hyunwoo found Tae-sung outside, looking up at the stars. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I failed once," Tae-sung said quietly. "On another world. I was bringing supplies to a colony, but my ship had engine trouble. By the time I arrived, I was 3 months late. The drought had gotten worse. Thousands of people died waiting for help that came too late." He wiped his eyes. "I won't fail again. I can't." Hyunwoo stood beside him in silence for a moment. Then he said, "You didn't fail them. You tried. That's what matters. Trying isn't enough if people die. Sometimes it is. My father tried to fix the processor and died, but we don't think he failed. He tried to help. He did his best. That's all anyone can do." Tae-sung looked at him. "Your people are brave. To share your water with me. To have hope when everything looks hopeless. I've traveled to many worlds, met many species. But I've never met anyone quite like you." The next morning, Haewon called a meeting with the council. Tae-sung presented his plan, showing diagrams and calculations on his datapad. He explained the ion seeding technique and how they could modify the existing processor. He talked about moisture in the upper atmosphere and how to pull it down. Most of the council members looked confused by the technical details. But Haewon, who had worked as an orbital engineer in her youth, studied the calculations carefully. She asked sharp questions and Tae-sung answered each one. Finally, she looked up. "These calculations are sound. The theory is good. I think this could work." Elder Jamin stood up. "This is madness. We'll waste resources on a failed experiment." "We're wasting resources doing nothing," Gia countered. "Every day we lose more water. More people leave. Soon there will be no one left. We have to try something different." The council voted. 5 members for, 2 against. Elder Jamin was one of the 2, but he was outvoted. The project would proceed. As they left the meeting, Haewon pulled Tae-sung aside. "Don't make me regret supporting you. If this fails, those against you will never let anyone forget it." Tae-sung met her eyes. "I understand. I'll give everything I have to make this work." And so the work began. The work began at sunrise. Tae-sung stood in the workshop with his datapad, showing Hyunwoo and Gia the designs for the modified condensers. The diagrams looked complex, but Tae-sung broke them down into simple parts. Pipes here, coils there, ion emitters at the top. Each piece had a purpose. "We'll need to build 5 smaller units," Tae-sung explained, pointing at the map of the settlement. "One here, one there, spread out in a network. They'll work together to pull moisture from the upper atmosphere." "Where will we get the materials?" Hyunwoo asked. The question everyone was thinking. From the abandoned settlements, from old equipment, from anywhere we can find them. Tae-sung pulled up a list on his pad. "I've identified what we need. Copper coils, pressure valves, ion emitters. Some we can make. Others we have to find." Gia studied the list. "This is a lot of scavenging, I know. But we can do it. We have to." They started that day. Hyunwoo, Gia, and Tae-sung took the old transport vehicle and drove to the nearest abandoned settlement. The place had been empty for 5 years. Buildings sagged under their own weight. Windows were broken. Sand filled the streets. They split up to search. Hyunwoo found an old processing plant with copper pipes they could use. Gia discovered a storage facility with crates of spare parts. Tae-sung located an old communications tower with ion emitters at the top. They worked until sunset, loading everything into the transport. On the second day, a woman named Mina joined them. She was a skilled welder who had lost her husband to the drought-related famine 2 years ago. Her face was hard and she didn't smile much. When she first saw Tae-sung, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "So you're the human everyone is talking about," she said. Her voice was cold. "You really think you can save us?" "I'm going to try," Tae-sung replied calmly. "Trying isn't good enough. My husband tried to find water, tried to keep our farm alive, tried to stay hopeful. He died anyway." Mina picked up a welding torch. "I'll help with this project. But don't expect me to like you." "I don't expect anything," Tae-sung said. "Just your skill with that torch." They worked side by side in tense silence. Tae-sung would show Mina where to weld, and she would do it perfectly without saying a word. But as the days passed, something began to change. Tae-sung would ask her opinion on the best way to join two pieces of metal. Mina would suggest a technique, and Tae-sung would nod and say it was better than his original idea. One afternoon, while they were assembling a condenser frame, Mina suddenly spoke. "Why are you really doing this? Humans are traders, travelers. You could have fixed your ship and left by now. Why stay?" Tae-sung was quiet for a moment. He kept working, his hands steady on the metal. "Because I owe you. All of you. You saved my life when you had no reason to. When it cost you resources you couldn't spare. How could I leave without trying to help? Most people would. Then I'm not most people." Mina looked at him for a long moment. Then she went back to welding. But after that day, her face wasn't quite so hard when she looked at him. The work was grueling. The sun beat down on them without mercy. The heat made the metal too hot to touch without gloves. Dust got into everything. But they kept going. More people from the settlement joined the effort. Some brought tools. Others brought food. Everyone wanted to help. Young Dae-hyun, the farmer's son, would visit the worksite with his mother, young Mi. The boy was fascinated by Tae-sung. He would ask endless questions. What was Earth like? Did it really have oceans? What was rain? Tae-sung would take breaks to talk to the child. He described Earth in simple words. Blue oceans so big you couldn't see the other side. Green forests with trees taller than buildings. Rivers that flowed year-round, and rain. Beautiful, life-giving rain that fell from gray clouds and soaked into the ground. "What does rain feel like?" Dae-hyun asked, his eyes wide with wonder. Tae-sung thought about it. "Like tiny soft touches on your skin. Cool and clean. It smells fresh, like the earth is breathing again. And when it falls, it makes a sound like music. Pitter-patter on roofs and leaves. In heavy storms, it roars like thunder." The boy listened with his mouth open. "I want to see rain someday." "You will," Tae-sung promised. "If we do this right, you will." That night, Dae-hyun dreamed of rain for the first time in his life. When he told his mother the next morning, young Mi cried tears of hope. But the project faced problems. Big problems. 3 weeks into construction, So-jin, the settlement's chief technician who managed their power systems, came to see them. She looked worried. "I've been running calculations," So-jin said, showing them readouts on her data pad. "The power requirements for your condenser network are massive. Our solar arrays can barely handle our current needs. If we try to run your system, we might overload the entire grid." Tae-sung studied her numbers. His face fell. "You're right. I didn't account for how old your power infrastructure is. On newer colonies, this wouldn't be a problem, but here, so what do we do?" Hyunwoo asked. Everyone looked at Tae-sung. The human ran his hands through his hair, thinking hard. Finally, he said, "We route all power to the condensers. Shut down everything non-essential. All of it. Lights, heating, everything except life support and the condensers. Put everything we have into one massive attempt." So Jin's eyes widened. "That's incredibly risky. If it doesn't work, we'll have wasted all that power for nothing. And if the grid fails, we might not be able to restart it." "I know, but it's our best chance." Tae-sung looked at each of them. "We're not trying to run these condensers forever, just once. One big attempt to seed the upper atmosphere and trigger rain. If it works, the rain will be self-sustaining. The water cycle will restart naturally. We just need to give it that first push. And if it doesn't work?" Mina asked. "Then we tried, and we'll figure out what to do next." They brought the plan to the council that evening. The meeting was loud and angry. Many council members thought it was too dangerous. Elder Jamin stood up and shouted that they were risking everything on the word of an outsider, but Haewon supported the plan. So did Jia, and Young Mi spoke up, her voice quiet but firm. "My son has never seen rain. He has never felt water fall from the sky. He dreams about it now because the human told him stories. I want my son to see rain before we have to leave this world. I vote yes. The vote was close. 4-3. But it passed. The next weeks were a blur of activity. They finished building all 5 condensers and installed them at strategic points around the settlement. Taesung climbed each tower personally to set up the ion emitters. The heights made Hyunwoo nervous, but Taesung worked with steady confidence. Sojin rewired the entire power grid, creating pathways to channel everything to the condensers. She worked 18-hour days, her fingers moving with practiced speed. This better work, she muttered to herself constantly. This better work. Mina welded the final connections. Her work was perfect, every seam tight and strong. When Taesung thanked her, she actually smiled. Just a small one, but it was there. The night before the activation, the whole team gathered around a small fire outside the workshop. They were exhausted. Their hands were covered in cuts and burns. Their backs ached. But there was something else in the air, too. Hope. Real hope. Jia looked at the condensers standing tall against the night sky. Do you really think this will work? Taesung followed her gaze. I think we've done everything right. The design is sound. The calculations check out. The equipment is solid. But there's always a chance something unexpected happens. That's the nature of terraforming. You do your best and hope the planet cooperates. What if it doesn't? Hyunwoo asked quietly. Then we try again, and again, until we succeed or run out of options. But I believe in this. I believe in the science. And I believe in all of you. You've worked harder than any team I've ever seen. If this works, it's because of you, not me. Mina snorted. Don't be modest. We're following your design. A design is just an idea. You made it real. There's a difference. They sat in comfortable silence watching the stars. Somewhere up there was Earth, Taesung's homeworld. Somewhere up there were other planets, other people, other problems. But right now, in this moment, all that mattered was Velthara Prime and the 5 condensers that might save it. Young Mai arrived with Dae-hyun. The boy was supposed to be asleep, but he had snuck out to see the condensers one more time. Will it really make rain tomorrow? He asked Taesung. I hope so. I really, really hope so. Me too. I practiced catching raindrops. The boy held up his hands cupped together. Mother showed me how. You hold your hands like this and let the drops fall in. Taesung's eyes became wet. He reached out and gently squeezed the boy's shoulder. That's perfect. You'll be ready. The next morning would be the test. Everything they had worked for, everything they had hoped for, would come down to a few hours. Either the condensers would work and bring rain, or they would fail and the settlement would have to face reality. There was no middle ground. As everyone prepared to leave, Taesung stayed behind. Hyunwoo found him standing in front of the main condenser tower, his hand resting on the metal. Are you all right? Hyunwoo asked. Just talking to it, asking it to work, promising it that if it does, I'll maintain it perfectly for as long as I'm here. You think machines can hear you? Maybe, maybe not. But it makes me feel better. Taesung turned to Hyunwoo. The sun rose on activation day, painting the sky in shades of red and orange. The entire settlement gathered in the central square. Hundreds of faces turned toward the condenser towers that stood like metal giants around them. Children sat on their parents' shoulders. Old people leaned on canes. Everyone was there. Even those who had doubted the project came to witness what would happen. Taesung stood at the main control panel with Hyunwoo, Jia, and Sojin. His hands moved across the controls, checking each system one last time. The translator device on his belt crackled as he spoke. All condensers showing green status. Ion emitters are charged. Power grid is stable. We're ready, Sojin checked her own panel. I've routed all non-essential power to the condensers. We're running at maximum capacity. Life support only in the buildings. Everything else is yours. Thank you. Taesung looked at Hyunwoo and Jia. Are you two ready? Jia nodded. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steady. Ready? Hyunwoo took a deep breath. Let's do this. Taesung placed his hand on the activation switch. For a moment he paused. Everyone waited, holding their breath. Then he pulled the switch down. The condensers hummed to life. It started as a low vibration that you could feel in your bones. Then it grew louder. A deep thrumming sound that echoed across the settlement. The ion emitters on top of each tower began to glow with a pale blue light. Pulses of energy shot up into the sky, invisible to the naked eye but registered on Sojin's instruments. Ion streams are stable, Sojin reported, reaching upper atmosphere. Charges are dispersing correctly. The crowd watched the sky. Minutes passed. The condensers continued their work, sending pulse after pulse into the thin air. The sound was constant now, a mechanical heartbeat that seemed to sync with the pulse of everyone watching. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then 30. Still nothing. The sky remained clear and blue and empty. Some people in the crowd began to shift uncomfortably. Whispers started to spread. Was it working? Had it failed already? Elder Jamin stood at the edge of the crowd, his arms crossed. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes held something that might have been satisfaction. He had predicted failure. It looked like he was being proven right. An hour passed. Tae-sung stared at his instruments, his jaw clenched tight. The numbers all looked good. The system was working exactly as designed, but nothing was happening in the sky. No clouds, no moisture, nothing. Maybe we need more time, Jia said quietly. The atmosphere needs time to respond. Maybe. But Tae-sung didn't sound convinced. He looked worried. Youngmi held Dae-hyun close. The boy had stopped asking when the rain would come. He just watched the sky with tired, hopeful eyes. His cupped hands were ready, waiting for drops that might never fall. 2 hours. The crowd was getting restless. Some people started to leave. Others sat down on the ground, resigned to waiting. The condensers kept working, their hum never faltering, but the sky remained cruelly clear. Minna came to stand beside Tae-sung. Is it working? The condensers are doing exactly what they're supposed to do. The ion seeding is happening, but... He trailed off, staring at the sky. I don't understand. This should be working. 3 hours. More people left. The crowd had thinned to about half. Those who remained looked tired and disappointed. Elder Jamin shook his head and turned to leave. I told you, he said to no one in particular. False hope is worse than no hope at all. Tae-sung's hands gripped the control panel so hard his knuckles turned white. Hyunwoo could see the desperation in his eyes. The human was watching his plan fail in real time, and there was nothing he could do about it. Another colony he couldn't save. Another promise he couldn't keep. 4 hours. Hyunwoo was about to suggest they shut down and conserve power when Sojin suddenly gasped. Wait, look at this. She pointed at her instruments. Atmospheric pressure. It's fluctuating. High altitude. Something's happening. Tae-sung rushed to look at her screen. His eyes went wide. The moisture is coalescing. It's working. It's actually working. But it's happening too slowly. We need more power. More time. We're already at maximum, Sojin said. I can't give you any more without risking the entire grid. Then we wait. We keep running and we wait. 4.5 hours. More pressure fluctuations. Sojin's instruments showed moisture gathering in the upper atmosphere. Invisible to those on the ground, but definitely there. Ice crystals were forming. The beginnings of clouds, but so high up, so far away. 5 hours. Then something happened that changed everything. Sparks flew from the main condenser. The humming sound became a screech of stressed metal. Warning lights flashed red on the control panel. The entire system was overloading. Power feedback. Sojin shouted over the noise. The condensers are generating more energy than they're using. The system can't handle it. We're going to have a cascade failure. What does that mean? Jia yelled. It means the entire power grid will collapse. We'll lose everything. Tae-sung stared at the readings in disbelief. The Velth technology can't handle successful condensation. It was never designed for this much atmospheric activity. Your power systems are too old, too fragile. Can we shut it down? Hyunwoo asked. If we shut down now, we lose our chance. The atmosphere is responding. We're so close. Tae-sung looked at the main condenser tower. Smoke was starting to rise from the base. I need to reroute the power flow manually. It's the only way. That tower is overloading, Mina said. You'll be electrocuted. Maybe. But if I don't try, this whole system will fail and we'll have nothing. All our work will be for nothing. Tae-sung started running toward the tower. Hyunwoo ran after him. Wait, you can't do this alone. Someone needs to stay at the controls. Then I'm coming with you. They reached the tower together. The metal was hot to touch. Sparks flew from exposed wiring. The humming had become a roar. Tae-sung found the access panel and ripped it open. Inside was a mess of circuits and connections, all glowing red with overload. I need to bypass the safety systems, Tae-sung shouted over the noise. Reroute the power directly through manual connections. It's dangerous, but it might work. Tell me what to do. See that blue wire? When I say now, you disconnect it and connect it to the green terminal. But be careful. If you touch the metal housing while you're doing it, you'll be fried. Hyunwoo looked at the wires. His hands were shaking. One wrong move and he would die. Just like his father had died trying to fix broken machinery. But if he didn't try, the whole project would fail. Everyone's hope would die, and Daehyun would never see rain. I'm ready, he said. Taesung began working on the power relays, his movements quick and precise despite the danger. Sparks showered around them. The metal groaned under the stress. Now, he shouted. Do it now. Hyunwoo grabbed the blue wire. His hands protected by thick gloves. He disconnected it, and immediately more sparks flew. He could feel the electricity in the air, making his hair stand on end. He reached for the green terminal, his hand steady despite his fear. He connected the wire. The tower shuddered. For a moment, Hyunwoo thought it would collapse. Then the sound changed. The roar became a hum again. The sparks stopped. The red warning lights turned yellow. It worked. Taesung was already moving to the next connection. But we need to do 3 more. The power core for my escape pod. We can use it as a buffer. Help me get it! They ran to where Taesung's crashed pod had been stored. Together they pulled out the power core, a cylinder of advanced human technology that still held a charge. They carried it back to the tower and connected it to the system. Taesung's fingers flew over the connections, rewiring the entire power flow. The condenser stabilized. The humming returned to its normal rhythm. The system was holding. Look up, Jia's voice came through the communication device. Everyone look up. Hyunwoo looked up, and for the first time in 14 years he saw clouds forming. Real clouds, dark and heavy and beautiful. They were gathering high above, pulled together by the ion streams. Moisture that had been scattered and thin was coming together, coalescing into something real. The crowd, those who remained, stood with their mouths open. Some people started crying, others just stared in disbelief. Youngmi lifted Daehyun higher so he could see. The boy's eyes were wide with wonder. Are those rain clouds? Someone asked. I think so, another voice answered. I think they are. The clouds grew darker, thicker. They spread across the sky like a gray blanket. The sun disappeared behind them. For the first time in 14 years, the settlement was in shadow. And it was the most beautiful shadow anyone had ever seen. Then the first drop fell. It landed on Elder Jaemin's upturned face. He was one of the few who hadn't left. The drop hit his cheek and rolled down like a tear. He touched it with his finger and stared at the moisture there. His hand began to shake, then another drop, and another, and suddenly rain was falling. Gentle at first, tentative drops that seemed almost afraid. Then more confident, steady, real. The crowd erupted in celebration. People screamed and laughed and cried all at once. Children ran into the open, holding their hands up to catch the drops. Adults stood still, letting the water wash over them, soaking into their clothes and skin. Some fell to their knees and wept. Youngmi held Daehyun out in the rain. The boy cupped his hands together just like he had practiced. Raindrops fell into his palms. The rain continued through the night. Taesung sat on the steps of the medical center, too tired to move, just watching the water fall. He had seen rain on dozens of worlds, but he had never seen anything quite like this. Every drop that hit the ground meant something. Every puddle was a miracle. Every stream of water running through the settlement streets was hope made real. Hyunwoo found him there an hour after sunset. You should rest. Dr. Yoonbi says you nearly killed yourself up on that tower. I'm fine. Just want to watch the rain a bit longer. Jia is making sure the condensers stay stable. So Jin is monitoring the power systems. Everything is holding. Hyunwoo sat down beside him. You did it. You actually did it. We did it. All of us together. Taesung held out his hand, letting raindrops pool in his palm. I was so scared it wouldn't work. When nothing happened for the first few hours, I thought I had failed again. That I had given everyone false hope. But you didn't fail. Look around. Listen to that sound, the sound of rain on rooftops, on metal, on dry ground drinking deep. It was like music. Throughout the settlement, people stood in doorways or sat on their porches just watching and listening. Some were still crying. Others smiled with pure joy. Children refused to go inside, wanting to stay in the rain as long as possible. Youngmi walked past with Daehyun. The boy was completely soaked, his clothes dripping, but he had never looked happier. "Thank you," she said to Taesung, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for giving my son rain. For giving all of us a future. You're welcome. But you gave me something too. You gave me a chance to help. To make a difference. That means more than you know." She bowed and continued on, Daehyun splashing in every puddle he could find. The rain fell for 3 days straight. Not hard, not violent, just steady and constant. The settlement's reservoirs filled. The old riverbed started showing water again, just a trickle at first, then more. The ground turned from red dust to dark mud, and slowly, incredibly, green began to appear. Seeds that had lain dormant for years suddenly sprouted. Plants that everyone thought were dead came back to life. Young Mi's farm, which had been nothing but dry dirt, showed the first shoots of new growth. She stood in her field crying, touching the tiny green sprouts like they were precious jewels. On the 4th day, the rain lessened to a drizzle, then stopped. But the clouds remained. Real weather patterns were forming. The atmospheric processor, now modified with Taesung's designs, kept working perfectly. The ion seeding had jump-started the natural water cycle, and now it was self-sustaining. Taesung spent the next few weeks teaching Hyunwoo, Jia, and the other technicians how to maintain the new system. He showed them how to adjust the condensers, how to read the atmospheric data, how to troubleshoot problems before they became serious. Minna worked alongside them, learning everything she could. She had discovered a talent for the technical work and wanted to become a full-time maintenance engineer. "Someone needs to take care of these machines," she said. "They saved us. We owe them our best care." So Jin created detailed documentation of the entire system. She wanted to make sure future generations would know how to keep it running. "This knowledge is too important to lose," she explained. "We nearly died because we didn't adapt, didn't innovate. We can't make that mistake again." The settlement began to transform. With water available, people started returning. Families who had left years ago came back when they heard the news. New buildings were constructed. The farms expanded. Children played in the river that flowed again after so long. Elder Jaemin, his attitude completely changed, became one of Taesung's strongest supporters. He organized a council meeting to discuss the future. "We need to think long-term," he said. "We have water now, but we need to be smarter about how we use it. We need to learn from our past mistakes." Taesung helped them develop a water management plan, sustainable farming practices, conservation measures, ways to monitor the atmospheric processor and prevent future droughts. He shared everything he knew about terraforming and climate management. But as the weeks passed, Taesung knew he couldn't stay forever. He had repaired his escape pod using parts from the settlement stores. His ship's distress beacon had finally connected with a passing freighter, and they were coming to pick him up. He would have passage to the nearest station, and from there he could continue his work on other worlds. The night before he was scheduled to leave, the settlement held a ceremony. Everyone gathered in the central square, which was no longer dusty and dry but green with new grass. The river flowed nearby, its sound a constant reminder of the miracle that had happened. Hae-won spoke first. "We nearly gave up. We nearly lost hope, but one human traveler showed us that hope is never lost, only waiting to be rekindled. Taesung, you gave us more than rain. You gave us a future." Elder Jaemin stepped forward. "On behalf of our people, I apologize for doubting you, and I thank you for not giving up on us even when we gave up on ourselves." He presented Taesung with a formal document. "We have decided to name the river that flows through our settlement Taesung's Flow. It will carry your name forever, reminding future generations of the human who brought rain to a dying world." Taesung accepted the document with shaking hands. "I don't know what to say. This is too much honor." "It's not enough honor," Jia said, "but it's what we can give." Minna stepped forward next. She held something small in her hands. "I made this for you, to remember us by." It was a small sculpture welded from scrap metal. It showed a human and a Velth standing together under falling rain. The rain is us meeting. Two different people working together, creating something neither could do alone. Taesung took the sculpture carefully. His eyes were wet. "It's beautiful. Thank you." Then Young Mi approached with Daehyun. The boy held a small vial filled with water. Clear, pure water from the rain. "This is for you," Daehyun said. "So you can take Velthara Prime's rain with you wherever you go. So you'll remember us." Taesung knelt down to the boy's level. He took the vial and held it up to the light. I will treasure this, and I could never forget you. Any of you. You taught me something important. What did we teach you? The boy asked. That trying matters. That even when things seem impossible, even when you're scared you'll fail, you have to try anyway. Because sometimes miracles happen. He looked at all the faces gathered around him. And you reminded me why I do this work. Not for the science, not for the challenge, but for moments like this. For seeing children play in rain that shouldn't exist. For seeing hope return to places where it died. That's everything. Dr. Yunbi wiped tears from her eyes. Sojin smiled through her own tears. Hyunwoo and Jia stood together holding hands, both crying openly. The ceremony ended with a traditional Velth blessing. Everyone placed their hands on their hearts and spoke together. May your path be clear. May your water be sweet. May you always find shelter from the storm. Then they added something new, something just for Taesung, and may you always bring rain to those who need it most. That night Taesung couldn't sleep. He walked through the settlement one last time. The river flowed beside him. Green things grew where there had been only dust. Children's toys lay scattered in yards. Normal life was returning. The kind of beautiful, ordinary life that had seemed impossible just weeks ago. He found himself at the main condenser tower. His hand touched the metal, and he thought about all the work they had done. All the fear. All the hope. All the moments when he thought they would fail. But they didn't fail. They succeeded. Thank you for working, he whispered to the machine. Keep working. Keep bringing rain. These people deserve it. Talking to machines again? Hyunwoo's voice came from behind him. Taesung turned, just saying goodbye. You could stay. We'd make room for you. There's so much more work to do here. I know, and I'm tempted. But there are other worlds out there. Other places that need help. Other people who are losing hope. Taesung smiled. Besides, you don't need me anymore. You know how to run this system. You'll teach others. And Velthara Prime will thrive. Will you come back? Someday? I promise. I want to see what this place becomes. I want to see Daehyun grow up. I want to see Youngmi's farm producing food. I want to see the settlement expand. I'll come back. They stood together in comfortable silence. Above them, clouds moved across the night sky. Real clouds full of moisture, ready to bring rain whenever the land needed it. The atmospheric processor hummed in the background. Its sound no longer strained but steady and strong. Taesung, Hyunwoo said quietly. You said you failed once. On another colony. You didn't fail here. No, I didn't. Taesung looked up at the clouds. Maybe I didn't fail there either. Maybe I just learned what I needed to know to succeed here. Sometimes our failures teach us how to succeed later. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. The next morning, the entire settlement gathered to see Taesung off. His repaired escape pod sat in the launch area, ready to take him to the freighter waiting in orbit. He said goodbye to everyone one by one. Hugs from Jia, a firm handshake from Elder Jamin, tears from Dr. Yunbi, a respectful bow from Sojin, a warm embrace from Minna, who whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on us." Youngmi lifted Daehyun up so he could hug Taesung properly.